So today's the start of personal finance, and today we are going to be doing stuff with simple interest. Later on, we're going to be doing with compound interest. So in simple interest, you just simply earn a rate of return, and in compound interest, we pay interest on top of interest. So we have lots of definitions there that they have already read through, and we are ready to start in. So the simple interest formula that we're going to use is I equals PRT. So if they read up above, they would see that I stands for interest, P stands for principal, R stands for rate, and T stands for time. This rate is always an annual rate, and this time is always time in years. So the future value simple interest formula, I think we did use this one a little bit last week, is A equals P times parenthesis 1 plus RT, where A is the future amount and P is the principal or initial amount. So it looks like the first thing that we're going to do is we're just going to calculate some interest rates. According to I think it's the banker's rule up there is what it was, that unless noted, we are going to use the fact that there are 360 days in a year. Why? I think that's supposed to be a times, but anyway, because 30 times 12 is 360, so I don't know, that's what we're going to do. All right, so we know the principal, we know the rate, we know the time. So this one is pretty awesome and straightforward. So when we go I equals PRT, only thing that we have to do is multiply them. The rate is as a percent, so you have to make sure that you turn the rate into a decimal. So that was the easy, straightforward one. The others are a little bit more challenging because we have this one, the time is in months. So here, that T, the time is always in years. So if it gives it to you in any other form other than years, you're going to have to write it as a fraction to show a portion of a year. I'm going to hit the pause button while they work on these. All right, so coming back to these, so on number 2, that was in months, so we just had to multiply that by 4/12, so we got $6.90. On number 3, I had a whole lot of typos, so I changed the rate to a decimal, and days is 10 over 360 because we're using 360 days in a year unless stated otherwise. And then I kind of messed up my decimal, so it looks like 3.0555, and then that rounds up to $3.06. And I'm going to need to come back to number 4 because the percent is in months and the time is in months, and I'm going to have to fact check myself on that one. So we will do that one tomorrow. In this section, we are going to find the missing value. So it says use the simple interest formula. So I'm using I equals PRT, and I want to find the missing value. So here in number 5, I know the principal, the rate is the unknown. So I'm basically just doing some algebra to solve for different variables. So in I equals PRT, I know the interest is $720. I know the principal is $2,400. The rate, I do not know. And the time is in years, so that would be 4. All right, so you have to solve for R. So on the right, I'm just multiplying 2,400 times 4. I'm going to divide both sides by 9,600. So I get 0.075. So that's your rate as a decimal. And so for the rate, it says percents to the nearest hundredth when necessary. So I also want to move the decimal. And so my rate is 7.5%. So we're going to do 6, 7, and 8. I'm going to hit the pause button while everyone gets that a shot, and I'll be right back. All right, so these are the answers that I got for 6. On that one, you just had to make sure that you paid attention that your time was in days. So when I put my time in, you have 90 over 360. Your rates, you have to make sure that you're always moving the decimal 2 to the left and turning that into a decimal. On number 7, I thought was pretty straightforward. Number 8, so that one was 213 days, so you had to make sure you put in 213 over 360. When I did that multiplication, I think that number was longer. So this is what I would call an intermediate step. And on the intermediate steps, let's use 4 decimal places there. So then when I went top divided by bottom, that approximated, and I got about 5% was my interest rate on that one. There we go. All right, so those were straightforward problems, and most of the time what you would see is a scenario, a word problem. So Paige is going to put 8,000 in an account, simple interest rate. If she doesn't remove any money, how much interest will she earn in 10 years? All right, so that's what we want to know. So if that's what I want, then PRT. So I would probably start off with my formula. So I would need to know the principal, the rate, and the time to calculate this. So how much you are going to deposit in the account, that is your principal. It tells me that my rate is 3.4%. I'm going to change that into a decimal. And it said that my time is 10 years. So now that I know the values for each of the variables, I'm just going to substitute. And you should get $2,720. So now we would like to know how much will she have in her account after 10 years. So the balance that she has in the account consists of the principal plus the interest that she has accumulated. So when it says how much will she have, we're just going to take the principal of $8,000, add the interest to it, and she will have 10,000, $720 in her account after 10 years. And we're going to hit pause, and they're going to try number 10. So the next one that you tried, you had to find the interest. So when you multiplied, you should have gotten $234. And so it doesn't matter if you are putting money in to earn interest or if you are on the other end and you are borrowing money and you are paying interest. It is still the same formula that we are calculating. So here we have what is the total that you will pay back? I'm going to pay back the principal plus the interest. So the principal is the $1,800 that I initially borrowed. The interest is the $234 that I just calculated. So you will end up paying back a grand total of $2,034. All right, so now we're going to calculate the future value. All right, so the future value, it says it's principal plus interest. Principal plus interest. Well, we've just been doing the interest formula, and the interest consists of taking the principal times the rate times the time. All right, so now we're doing algebra where we're basically factoring out a GCF. So I have a P here and I have a P here. And so since these each have a P, when I factor out a P, when I divide that away, I get a 1 there. And then when I factor it away, you just have the rate and the time there. And so I feel like this is a formula that we have used in the past, but I thought that I would show you how we derive it. And so now if it says, would you like to calculate the future value, here is the formula. So A is the future value equals principal times 1 plus rate times time. Formula amount owed. I think that I just was going to put it right there. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to open a bank account with the simple interest rate of this. I'm going to put in $6,500. How much will she have in the account? So based upon the words, it is wanting to know the future value that I will have in 3 years. So the future value formula is A equals P times 1 plus RT. I'm going to deposit $6,500, so there's your P. There's my rate, and in 3 years, so there's my time. So sometimes I just label it in the problem, sometimes I write it off to the side. So once I know everything, I'm just going to substitute my values in. In my rate, I'm moving it 2 to the left in my head. This is something that you should just be able to put in your calculator in its entirety. If you don't get the right answer, it might be because you definitely need a double parenthesis closure here to tell the calculator the full and correct order of operations that you're trying to do, because it needs to understand that that is one calculation that needs to come first, and then we're multiplying it by 6,500. So the total is $6,792.50. I'm going to hit the pause button, and they're going to try the next one. All right, so when they tried that one, I'm going to take out a short-term loan. 1060 is my principal, 6.5% is my rate. Your time is only 3 months. So on that one, since it was only in months, you have to make sure that you write that in terms of a year. So that needed to be written as 3/12. If you just put a 3, then you got a wrong answer on that one. So money is always to 2 decimal places. And so I just wrote down the first 3 that I saw. And then I have to round it to the nearest cent. And then the 5 rounds that up to a 3. And so you will end up paying back $1,077.23. Nope, nope, nope. Yep. All right. All right. Sometimes we have good habits. Sometimes we have bad habits. Today our bad habit is that you buy a latte. You're going to spend $4 every day, 5 days a week. How much will you have spent in an entire year on lattes? All right. $4 a day, 5 days a week, 52 weeks in a year. And so when I multiply those together, I find that I have spent $1,040 on lattes. So question B says you stop buying a latte and instead invest your yearly spending in a savings account at a 5% rate. How much would you have after 10 years? So this problem assumes that you stop spending the money and then you immediately have this much money in your pocket. So it is assuming that your principal is that $1,040. Your rate is 5%, and your time is 10. A equals P times 1 plus RT is my formula. Sub in 1,040 on your principal. Your rate is 0.05. Your time is 10. And when you multiply that out, you would have $1,560 in your account in 10 years. I'm going to hit pause. Everybody's going to do the Annie Cafe problem, and we'll see what the answer is. Sorry, you were lacking a piece of information in all my altering this problem. The rate is 6% on that one. Now, hopefully, you can try it. All right, so I'm going to borrow $6,100. I'm going to take out a short-term loan for 290 days. How much do I have to pay at the end of that period of time? So my rate, I went back and said, is 6%. So when I substituted everything, I have to pay back $6,394.83. So on money problems, we're going to round into 2 decimal places. On my intermediate step, I just kind of wrote a few extra decimals, and then I figured out what my answer was going to be. All right. Last section. All right, so similar to the earlier section when I had a missing variable in the I equals PRT, now we're going to read through this, and you're going to have a missing variable, and you're going to have to substitute it in and figure out what it is. All right, I earn 4% interest. So sometimes as I'm reading through it, I jot it down so that I don't have to go back. How much must he deposit? So I know that the A is the future value and that P is my initial value. So how much does he have to deposit is saying the P is my mystery amount that I do not know. I want it to be worth. So to be worth is a phrase that is indicating a future value. So A is 1,000, there we go, in 5 years. Round your answer to the nearest dollar. So A equals P times 1 plus RT. My amount is 1,000. My principal is unknown. My rate is 0.04. My time is 5. All right, so I can certainly do the math in that parentheses. So when I do the math in that parentheses, one moment, I haven't done this problem. $1.2, okay. And then I'm just doing algebra. I'm going to divide both sides by 1.2. And you should have gotten $833.33. I'm going to hit pause and let everybody try the next two and come show you the answer in a moment. All right, so to finish this up on number 16, it says that you need to save, so that's indicating a future amount there. So that is my A. Plan to buy in 4 years, so that is my T. It tells me my rate, so I changed it into a decimal. It says how much will you need to deposit. So therefore, that was asking my P, the principal. So then when I substituted everything in, I was able to do the math right there in the parentheses. Thank you. And so that's where I got my 1.19. And then I just did algebra. I divided both sides by 1.19. And I got this long answer. And we were talking money. So money, we're going to round to 2 decimal places. And that's where I came up with this answer. On 17, I feel like I need to make the wording more user-friendly. It has a balance of this. And it says, after 27 months, what will the amount, I think that I'm trying to ask, what will the amount be in the account? So I'm asking what the future amount is. So here is my P, my initial amount. My time is in months. So when I put the months in, you need to make sure that you write that in as 27 over 12 so that you change your time frame. And then when you multiply that out, I got a bunch of 9s. And so this 9 rounds that up, which rounds that up. And that's how I got $2,517. Good lesson.